And welcome again to another edition of Success Talk. I'm Deborah Shariff. I am so excited. As you can see, I have Traci Waters. We've been trying to get Traci for a minute. First time we had to cancel, and I'm so glad. Traci, thank you so much for coming. Well, actually, appearing for the first time on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about it. It's my first podcast, so I'm excited to be your guest today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And I just want to say for the streamers, if you see that beautiful picture of her mom, she's hugging her mom. And I just want
Absolutely.
to share how Traci actually turned a tragedy into her becoming an author. Her beloved mom passed away in 2020 of December. So let me just give you just a quick background, and then I'm going to let Traci take it away. Um, Traci, let me get the right bio here. Traci Waters is a new author of the children's story, The Journey of Baby Angel. She's owner of Mary J. Books. She began writing as a way of working through the grief of losing her beloved mother, Mary Jackson Dunlap. In addition to her first book, The Journey of Baby Angel, her other published stories will soon include He Loves Me So and She Loves Me So. Traci, also known as Grammy, her and her husband love being grandparents, and their stories revolve around everyday life within the family environment, as well as promoting emotional health and grief support. And her famous quote, I love this quote, Traci: be happy not because everything is good, but because you can see the good in everything. What a
Absolutely.
what a beautiful story. And a lot of us can really identify with the fact of losing. I lost my mom in
Hmm.
1987.
Mm.
And it was a horrible loss. And it was really interesting. The first person I told was, their response was, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Deborah. By the way, I lost my 99-year-old grandmother." And I'm saying, how does
Aw.
that equate with losing your mother? And
Mhm.
so, having said that, it's probably only people that have lost their parent that really understand the grief process. So, again, welcome to Success Talk. Tell us about your journey and how did the journey of baby Angel come about?
Oh my goodness. Well, the journey of Baby Angel began, honestly, I would have to go back even to October of 2020. So, what happened was my auntie, Delma Raynetta, passed away in October of 2020. And it was heartbreaking for our family because it was completely unexpected. And then in December of 20, I was visiting my daughter in Virginia. She was pregnant, and we were having a good time learning the sex of the baby. And on the evening of the 16th, I got a video chat from my nephew. And he says, Traci, I think I just saw Nene take her last breath. So, of course, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to do, but I was traveling home the next morning. So I get home, and pretty quickly, they are telling us that she didn't have enough oxygen to her brain for too long. So we very quickly learned that we were probably going to have to make a decision to take her off of the ventilator, off of the life support. Fortunately, she had been very clear about what she wanted if this situation was to ever occur. Because my mama was a lively woman. You know what I'm saying? They called her Tina, as in Tina Turner, because she loved to sing and dance and she was full of life. You know what I'm saying? So she made it very clear that if it ever came a time where she had to be on a machine to live, what her choice would be. So the family knew what we needed to do, unfortunately, as much as we did not want to, but we were not going to allow her to be, dragged out on the machine any longer than necessary. So we had to make that decision and laid my mom to rest. And it was so heartbreaking to lose her, period, but then to lose her and not have the opportunity to share my grandbaby with her was really heartbreaking. We actually had three grandbabies born after she passed. So we had Sierra born in January. We had little Ajax, as we call him, Andre Jr. In um, he was born in May, and then my baby was also born at the end of May, my grandbaby. So the journey of Baby Angel was really born out of that heartbreak that I felt for my mom not being here for the baby being born. Because when my daughter told me she was pregnant, the first thing I thought was, how am I going to get mama from Alabama to Virginia? Because she's got to be there when this baby is born. It never occurred to me that my mother would not be there the day that this child was born. And so um, then I turned 50. So, you turn 50, you're having those milestone birthdays and you're like flashing back. It's like, oh my gosh, what's my life? What am I doing with myself? And I was still deeply grieving. My husband told me, he said, I think you need some help. I think you need to go talk to somebody because this woman was like so much of my life. And you don't realize it until they're gone. You don't realize how much of your day you spend talking to or speaking with them or being in front of them. And I was just really heartbroken. So the story was born out of my vision of what happened. Does mama know my baby? I know she's watching us, but does she really know my baby the way I wanted her to? And that's where this story came from. I kind of drafted it one night sitting in bed. I kind of had a visual of it. And my husband actually helped me finalize the title because originally I called it The Baby Angel. But when he read it, he's like, what about the journey of Baby Angel? I'm like, oh, that's why I married you. You know what I'm saying? So I said, oh, that's perfect. So the journey of Baby Angel was born. And I said, you know what? She's going to walk down her path. And as she goes down her path to be born to my daughter, she's going to meet all of the beautiful women in our family, and they're going to touch on her just a little bit, while she's walking this path to be born to my daughter. And I love the idea of it. The illustrations were incredibly important. I told the illustrator, I said, when my family opens this book, I need them to recognize these people. I need them to open it and not have to read the words. They know as soon as they see the page, they know who this is. You know what I'm saying? It was so important that they be able to recognize our family members that quickly. And I was really excited at how all of the illustrations turned out so beautifully. And, it's a children's book, but I really feel like the story can speak to anybody who's lost a family member. I feel like even an adult who reads the book would be very touched to see some of those memories. These women are depicted in a way that I remember them. I remember my great grandmama, Mom Bell, Honey Bell in the book. She passed away when I was 10. I clearly remember her always sitting in a rocking chair somewhere, always sitting somewhere with those long braids all the way down her shoulders. I clearly remember my grandmama. She used to love to fish, Mayella. So she loved to go fishing. So she was always sitting somewhere on a little white bucket fishing, and her and granddaddy out there with Nike, the dog. The whole family knows Nike. So he's also depicted in that illustration. And then the next illustration you'll see is my mother and my auntie. And when I tell you those two were just like this, because honestly, in part, I think my mom passed at least a little bit from heartbreak of losing her sister. And so she, that depiction is of the two of them sitting on the porch gossiping like all sisters do. That's their thing. That's what they would be doing in heaven right now. So I had to depict, what are they doing in heaven? I know they're watching us, but are they here with us the way we always say that they are? And I truly feel like they are. I feel like they're there with us. And I know my mom was with the baby as she was following her path to be born to my daughter, because my twin sister told me, she said, Mama's too nosy not to be with us. I'm like, girl, you are right about that. She's way too nosy. Her and my auntie Netta, way too nosy not to be watching what's going on and not to be right here with us every day. And that's really what got me through the sadness of losing her, but the happiness of welcoming this baby, because it's a short period of time.
Tracy, I wish I had have read the book, and pardon me if I haven't, but do you have some of the illustrations that you could possibly show us on air right now?
Can I share my screen?
No, this isn't Zoom, unfortunately.
Okay.
But what you can do, you can actually, like, for example, you can hold it up,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can actually make you, thank you very much, and I
Okay.
can make you large. And so some of your favorite illustrations, and let me just put you up
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Well, one of
And
my first favorite
illustration.
ones. Okay. So one of my first favorite illustrations is the one I'm about to show you. And this is as baby Angel is coming towards the end of her journey. And she comes across two angels sitting on the porch. Because as I said, losing my auntie in October of 20 and then my mother in December, that was a lot for the family to handle. My mom has several sisters and a brother, well, two brothers still living, and they're really, really close. So when Aunt Netta passed away, that was difficult enough. But then to think that they lost another sister within a couple of months, it was really heartbreaking, not just for us children, but for my aunties and uncles as well. So one of my first favorite illustrations is this one here. I don't know if you can see it, but
Oh,
this
wow.
illustration depicts baby Angel approaching my mother, Nini, as the grandbabies call her, and my aunt Netta. And they're sitting on the porch gossiping with their little halos.
Oh,
And
that is
Netta's telling all kinds of stories because Netta was a storyteller of the family. She could tell you a story and have you cracking up in a heartbeat. She would just have you tickled deep within your soul within a few minutes. That's just who she is, who she was. So that's my first favorite illustration, because this right here is what we all needed to know. This is what we all need to feel. We all need to feel like, Mama and my Aunt Netta are sitting together, loving each other, continuing to be the wonderful people that they are, the people that we miss so much. Um, so that was important to notate, to have them together in at least one of the illustrations, to show that they pass so close to one another, to show that they're still together with each other.
That is so beautiful. And, when I look at the illustration, it reminds me of a dream I had many, many, many moons ago when I lost my grandmother. I was 12
Mhm,
years old, and I
mhm.
had this dream that me and my brother Rick, we floated above the clouds.
Oh,
And
wow.
when we did, there was my grandmother and my
Mhm,
grandfather in
mhm.
a beautiful house with a white picket fence of all
Aw.
places, of all things. And I remember walking in because for my first child that I had, I was so afraid that my grandmother never saw my first child, my first daughter.
Right.
And it was such a beautiful, and it was such a beautiful reunion. And I remember walking into the house. I actually walked into the house because, dreams can get crazy sometimes, right? But I
Right.
walked into the house, and there was a picture of Carla, my firstborn, sitting on my grandmother's dresser. And I said,
Mm.
that was an indication that
She
she
saw.
knew about my daughter.
Absolutely.
So looking at that illustration, that's what it triggered in me. Loss is so profound, especially at 12 years old, because I had a great grandmother. And it's
Absolutely.
really, really tough. Now, what kind of impact, Traci, has your book had on people who have read it? What type of feedback have you received?
Well, so far, I've received a lot of feedback. Unfortunately, a lot of people have experienced loss recently, which is another reason why, while I want to promote the book itself, I also want to promote, talking about grief and how that feels and how it can affect a person. We're living in COVID. My mother or my auntie, neither of them passed from COVID, but they passed away. My husband lost two uncles in a similar time period. So we had a lot of loss, and grief can affect us all in so many different ways. I saw my siblings, my cousins, my aunties and uncles. I've seen all of us respond in so many different ways. And I know from the line of work that I do and different things like that, I've seen how that negative feeling can take over and impact your life. And I also want to do, just promotion of supporting yourself through the process of grief and understanding when it's getting out of control. Like I said, when I couldn't compose myself, my husband's like, I think you need to go talk to somebody, because there were some days I didn't want to be bothered with people at work. I couldn't make anything relevant. It's like nothing matters right now. My mother is not on this earth anymore, so none
Right.
of the rest of it matters. I felt like that for a while, and I had to find a way to accept the fact that she's not physically here with me anymore, but I believe she's still here with us. She's here with us in everything we do. And if you look at that picture, I look a lot like my mother. So there are days
You
I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm literally turning into my mother right now. But in a wonderful way. I That's my girl. And it was just so important for me to be able to share my story with other people, because I understand how much grief can affect you, and how it can take you down a really dark path if you let it. So I feel like the people who have read it, they're kind of like you. They have that moment of wow, that reminds me of something in my family, and that's what I want. So I'm glad you said that, because that's really what I want. As people look through the book, I want families to say, you know what, if they're reading this to their child and say, you know what, your great grandmama, she liked to knit. And every day when I came home from school, I would see her knitting. You know what I'm saying? I want the story to generate that kind of feeling. So the parents who are sharing this book with their babies can start to, reflect on some of the wonderful memories they have of their family members who might have passed before the babies before the babies were born. So,
Absolutely. Well, it's such a sweet story. And, I truly believe that, once somebody reads a story, just like I just saw one illustration and it triggered a memory from me. So I can
mhm.
imagine, the impact that it's had on your family members. And, prior to the show, we were talking about your siblings, and I know they're having a rough time losing your mom.
Mhm.
And I did mention that because the family is still processing the loss of this wonderful woman, she must have been really something. As you mentioned, she loved to dance, she had a presence. And so what is going on with your siblings, and how is everybody healing from this tremendous loss?
Well, the healing is coming slowly for all of us, really. Our father is, he's still living, he's still struggling, of course. His everyday life changed more than any of ours, of course. So he's still making it through, though, getting it day by day. All of my siblings kind of responded so differently. My twin sister kind of had physical pain in her body, so she's not as much of a crier. I'm a crier. I cry about everything. So of course, that was a lot. That's how I express a lot. But my sister, my twin sister, is not really that way. It's a lot like my mother. My mother was not a big crier. So my twin sister had a lot of physical pain in her body. That's how the grief expressed
Wow.
itself. My baby sister had some distraction in the beginning. She had her grandbabies around, but then her house got kind of quiet. And, that's it's really starting, to kind of creep up on her some. But she's getting better every day. But the sadness is still there. The sadness is still there. My brothers, oh my gosh, my mom took good care of those boys. And so not having her there as the go-to, it's taken a minute. It's taken a minute to figure out who's my go-to now. When I need something, or when I need some backup, when I need whatever, where do I go? So our family dynamic has shifted. We're all trying to figure out who's that go-to person. Who do I call when I really need something? And so trying to figure out who do I contact, and who's going to be, the new version of Mary J, because nobody can be her, but who's going to be this person
Absolutely.
within the family, you know what I'm saying? And trying to also grow up, if I'm being honest, some people had to grow up, she's not
Exactly.
there to do it. So some people are going through the growing up phase as old as they already are. They're just now growing up because she was there to provide so much support. My aunties are hanging in. They're finding it their responsibility to take care of us, even though we're all grown people. I know that my aunties feel the need to support all of us, because like I said, it wasn't just my side of it, my siblings and myself. I have three other cousins who lost their mother when Delma Raynetta passed away in October. So in total, it's probably seven of us, um, eight of us, adult children who lost their parents, lost their mom within such a short period of time. So my aunties feel the need to reach out and take care of us, and I appreciate that so much. But like I said, we're all grown. So I don't want them to bend over backwards too much, because we really need to make sure they're okay as well. They lost two sisters that they're this close with back to back. And emotionally, I know that was a lot for them to handle. So I think my message I would want people to realize is that, when you're going through that moment of grief, you need to recognize if you're going too far down a negative path in your coping, because I'm sure your loved one does not want you to have those negative emotions take over your life. They want us to continue on and be happy and focus on those positive memories that we have with them.
Wow. And how can someone can purchase the book?
Absolutely. So I'm on Amazon. So honestly, you can just search my name, Traci Waters, Tracy with an I,
Mhm.
Traci Waters in Amazon, or just search my name, period. MaryJBooks.com is my website. So you can go there and there should be links there to the Amazon page. Or just search the name of the book, The Journey of Baby Angel. I actually have two additional stories that I've published since then, since you and I first made contact. So He Loves Me So and She Loves Me So are also out. Those little stories kind of follow mom and dad through a day with their toddlers. And you know how that can be, following around a toddler all day. That was kind of inspired just thinking about what my daughter's about to get into. So, my grandbaby, Rory, who this story is named for, she is she's not 1.5, she's about 14, 15 months old right now, and she's walking and running everywhere. So, that story is definitely for my daughter. It's like, this is what you're in for. She's going to drive you crazy, but you're going to love and hug on her because you're going to love her anyway. And I have one more coming up soon that I'm really excited about that features my husband and one of our grandbabies. It's
Oh,
called Big Fell and Little TJ. And they're a big version and little version of the same person. And it is a beautiful thing to see. So I'm excited about that one as well. So,
absolutely. And there's probably a lot of wannabe authors as well as authors that are watching this particular stream. So, what is your process and how do you find time to write?
well, when Baby Angel really sat on my heart, I just kind of stopped everything, if I'm being honest. I mean, of course, I work full time, but we're empty nesters. So I had quiet time. And I just made it important to me. I just stopped all of the extracurriculars. And I feel like when something comes to you, it just kind of comes naturally. You don't have to fight. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to fight for the words. Being that I am self published, I had to do a little bit of research to figure out how to go through the process. But the writing of the story itself, once I started, it really it kind of did a flow. And I really feel like when you get in that rhythm, that it just kind of produced itself. And being that it's a children's story, of course, it's relatively short. It's 38 pages, so it's not a long story, but it did take some tweaking here and there. So I just made it my top priority because I said, you know what? If this book only sells to my family, I've still done my job. You know what I'm saying? I'm still proud of myself because I want something of Mary J to be out there in the world. You know what I'm saying? I want it to be out there in the world and available for people to purchase if they think the story speaks to them.
Absolutely. And you talked about self publishing. I'm a self published author as well. And what was that like? Where did you go for information?
Wow. That was a good question. So I went to a lot of YouTube. I Googled a lot of places. And I would tell somebody who's interested in self publishing, don't be intimidated by the process. I mean, I'm sure you would say the same since you're self published, but I would also say stick to your guns about what you want. Because as I said, the illustrations in this book were extremely important. So the first go around with the illustrations didn't go so well. And I was like, I'm not having any parts of that. You're going to
Mhm.
have to fix this. This is not what I need. This is not what I want. So I had to do a little bit of research. But when I found the right illustrator, I got beautiful illustrations that really are able to depict my story. And the illustrations were so important to me that I was really happy when my auntie my auntie in Texas, my aunt Bob. So I sent her a draft. I sent all of my aunties and uncles a draft of the book before it got finished. And when I tell you that she called me and let me know, Tracy, these pictures are so, she didn't even read the story. She was stunned by the picture. She was so stunned by how accurate the illustrations were. She hardly even read the words. She has to go back and read the words a second time because she was like, what? That is, it was just amazing to her. And that was important. So as a self-published author, I would tell somebody, when you figure out what your process is, make time to write, find professionals to give you good feedback about your product, but stick with your guns about what you want. Don't let somebody force something on you. Because if I had let them force those illustrations on me, I wouldn't have had that conversation with my auntie. You know what I'm saying? My auntie wouldn't be like, Tracy, that's amazing. And they're the ones who I want to be proud of what this product is. My aunties who are, and uncles who are still here with me and love my mama as much as I do.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. It's so interesting when you talked about the illustration. That's the same, the illustrator. That's the same process that I went through. And I don't think people realize if you're going to be a self publisher, the first challenge is finding an illustrator that you can work with. So when I first started um, working with an illustrator, I had to actually write down the dramatic premise of what I
Mhm.
was looking for,
Yep.
and that was sort of like a test, and you have to negotiate because one of the illustrators, oh, you should see my second book, it's beautiful. And I had so many illustrators that I was working with. I told them I want to see your sample work, and I gave
Hmm.
them, the idea of what the vision I had. So
Yep.
the illustrator that had my vision, that's who I hired. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I kind of do the same thing. Yeah. When I tested out the second illustrator, I
Mhm.
asked them for a sample. I'm like, no, we're not going down this path again. So I gave them the most important picture to me, which was the one I shared a moment ago with my auntie and my mom on the porch gossiping. That was the most important one. I wanted to be sure he could capture their faces. And when I was satisfied with that, I selected them. So I completely understand where you're coming from with that. Hmm.
Wow. We're going to take a short pause. I'm going to actually um, present one of the children's books that I wrote. So just bear with me for a moment and we come back and we're going to have some closing thoughts from Traci Waters. And this is the Grandpups Young Reader Series. If your child is struggling with reading and writing, I have the solution for you. The Grandpups Young Reader Series is a reading and writing curriculum with over 50 lesson plans and an accompanying storybook. The story is about the untold history of enslaved Africans and the friendly relationships between the two ethnic groups, who later formed a close bond and created underground homes. So as you can see in the picture, that's the accompanying storybook. And next to it is the curriculum. And for you parents, there's an answer key because I know all the questions you wouldn't be able to actually respond to. And for the introductory price, it's only 19.95. So that is my book that I'm really very excited
It's
about. I have
wonderful.
two self-published books, Tracy, and
Mhm.
the one that I really love is the fact that it's a curriculum. I couldn't just write a storybook. I've been teaching for like 30 plus years, so I couldn't just
Right,
write a book without a curriculum because I
right.
know that the schools do not have our best interest. And so I said when I'm actually creating a reading and writing curriculum, it must have a historic backdrop of
Oh,
African Americans or people of African descent, their
very good.
contributions exactly and victories. And
Mhm,
if we were to rely on American history, it's like we were happy and our ancestors were happy and nappy on the plantation, and that was not
mhm.
the case. So
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
amazing. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Tracy, closing words. We're just about out of time. Let me see. Yep, we got 2 minutes. So what are some of your advice for some wannabe authors or just in general for people who are watching that have just gone through losing a loved one?
I would say if you've just gone through losing a loved one, really check yourself and see where are you emotionally. Some people can regulate that emotion and it doesn't take over. But if you do feel it taking over, there are a ton of online resources. Even I have a friend who recently she attended grief support online. Then she found a grief share group at a local church, and she's found a lot of comfort in that. Um, and I would just say seek out those services because there are a ton of things available. And for the authors, I would tell them again, you stick with what you want to do, stick with your vision. Don't get overwhelmed and put yourself on a reasonable timeline. It takes a little longer than I realized. I kind of had a vision of getting it done in 6 months, and that didn't quite work out. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, stay focused on what your overall vision is. And if you've lost someone you love, just know that they're with you every day. My other favorite illustration is this last one right here that I'd like to share if I could of
Absolutely.
when the baby
Let me make
yes
it big, right?
when the baby's finally
Oh,
born
I
and my
love
mother watching from heaven, me
wow.
and my daughter Sydney and the baby,
That
and
is Beautiful,
Thank
Tracy.
Oh, I love it. I
Oh
love
my
it.
goodness.
So,
Oh, you
like
very
I said, if you're a
illustrative.
self-published author, stick with your guns and make sure you get what you want out of that, because it's just incredibly important. So that end product is something you're proud of, because you put your blood, sweat, and tears into that. You need to make sure that is what you want it to be. But if you're struggling with grief, please reach out. Don't do that by yourself.
Now you've got to give your email address. How will somebody try if they're interested in getting in touch with you? How would they, and how can they purchase the book?
Absolutely. So again, the book is on Amazon. So you can search my name, Traci with an I, Traci Waters on Amazon, or you can reach me through email, maryjbooks@outlook.com.
And say it one more time. You got to repeat.
maryjbooks@outlook.com is my email address, or Amazon, or honestly, it's available on Walmart, even Walmart, any of the major distributors. You can search my name or the title, Journey of Baby Angel, and it should pop right up.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Tracy, it was a ball having you on. I
I
would love to
appreciate
have
it.
you back with your other two published books. If you would like to, present them to the streamers, I would love
Most
to have you
definitely.
back. Awesome. Thanks again, Tracy, for being a
Thank
part of
you.
Success Talk. And I want to thank the streamers for hanging in there. We were a half an hour late because of an emergency again, but we're here 3:30. So thanks
Absolutely.
again. Absolutely. Take care, Tracy. Take care, streamers. Until next time, take care.
Bye.